In my past video, I got all 50 base game achievements in Fallout 4. So, in this video, I got the remaining 34 DLC achievements for the 100% on Steam. Fallout 4 has 6 DLCs ranging from quality as well as the number of achievements, with some having as little as 3 achievements and some having as much as 10. The first DLC I go for is and we start off great with a bug where you cannot listen to the caravan distress frequency, so I had to look up where I was supposed to go instead of learning that from the radio. I talked to Ada, getting the Mechanical Menace achievement, and am tasked to go kill a big robot for a mechanist device. Real creative, Bethesda! I install this device into Ada, and am tasked to find 2 more of them. On the second device, I also looted my 10th robot mod for the Robot Hunter achievement. The next 2 achievements were headhunting and restoring order for continuing the main story of the DLC, but I accidentally deleted the footage of me getting these achievements and killing the mechanist and everything else. This brings us to the last achievement of this DLC, which is to craft 10 robot mods, which I did right after killing the mechanist, but in a separate recording. That's why you can see this one and not me actually killing the mechanist. Now, we move on to the second DLC, which is and the first achievement I get for this DLC is to unlock all of the buildable areas in Vault 88. Overseer Barstow then tells me about the new settlers, and we do the interview process determining Clem is our perfect test subject, which transfers right into the next achievement for outfitting a settler in a vault suit and Pip-Boy. At first, I go along with Barstow's plan, but eventually get bored and just kill her for the Oversight achievement. This wraps up the Vault Tech DLC, and we move on to which has 2 easy achievements for assigning a settler to a pillory and showing off some worthless loot on a weapon rack, an armor rack, and a power armor stand. The last achievement in this DLC is to use some machines to create 100 objects, and I chose steel balls, which just got recycled into more steel balls. This wraps up the Contraptions Workshop DLC, and we move on to this Workshop DLC was way more annoying than the other 2 because I had to go around and collect all of the required materials for all of the cage types, and it took about 3 times longer than the other 2. Once I had all the cage types, I had to continuously repair one, then sleep for 24 hours until I rolled a d20 and I captured a Yaogwai. The last achievement was easy compared to the other 2 because all I had to do was assign a settler to a team pad and watch the Yaogwai scratch him to death in the presence of a quitting time siren. With 4 DLCs out of the way, we move on to the final 2, which are also the longest ones, starting with the first achievement of Far Harbor was to just travel to the island. The next one was to continue the main quest and go to Acadia, talk to Dima, and then to Kasumi for the Where You Belong achievement. I then traveled to the nucleus, drink some irradiated water, and hallucinate a person running somewhere. Next, I did a random achievement to cook a Far Harbor recipe and started the infamous memory sections. Upon finishing these terrible sections, the following quests, and talking to Dima, I am awarded the Where You Belong achievement and a nice piece of armor named Acadia's Shield. I get the Cleansing the Land achievement after blowing up the nucleus because I like Dima more than them, and since I'm done with Far Harbor's story except for one quest, I started doing the other miscellaneous achievements included in this DLC. The first one I get to is to push back the fog, when I unlock Longfellow's Cabin, the National Park Visitor Center, and Dalton's Farm. Next was the achievement to discover 20 Far Harbor locations when I discovered Dalton Farm, and after that it was to find all 5 issues of the Islanders Almanac. At this point, there were 2 achievements left in this DLC, and one was to kill 30 sea creatures, and the other was to finish the last story quest named Close to Home. With 5 out of the 6 DLCs down, it was finally time for Nuka World starts with an achievement right away for talking to Gage just after finishing the gauntlet and killing Overboss Coulter. Then, I went around and met all the gang leaders and got a great gun from Mason that I'll use for the rest of the game. After meeting all of the gangs, I got the Rating for a Living achievement when I completed my 12th quest for any gang. The main quest was the next priority for Nuka World, and I started with clearing Kitty Kingdom and giving it to the pack. Then it was the bottling facility, which went to the operators. Then Safari Adventure, which went to the pack again. And Dry Rock Gulch in the Galactic Zone went to the disciples. I then spoke to Gage and finished the Grand Tour quest and achievement, as well as got started on the Home Sweet Home quest with Shank. Since this quest is incredibly boring and just a tutorial, here is when I finished it, getting me the Home Sweet Home achievement. I then applied the knowledge I have received from Shank to set up 7 other raider camps in the Commonwealth for the Hostile Takeover achievement. The next thing to do was to complete the story of Nuka World by taking care of the hostile situation at the power plant when the operators turned on us because they were jealous. And after turning the power back on for the entire park, I spoke to Gage and got the power plate achievement. At this point, there were 4 miscellaneous achievements left, and I started by collecting the last of the Scav magazines for the Diberian achievement. Then I collected and crafted every single Nuka-Cola recipe for the Beverageer achievement and used the crafted Nuka-Cola to run around and kill 40 Nuka-Cola creatures. This brings us to the last and most annoying achievement, which is to redeem 100,000 tickets at the Nuka-Cade. But to redeem 100,000 tickets, you have to first earn 100,000 tickets by playing some of the Nuka-Cade's games. You could either spend hours of your life doing this legit with one machine at a time in the intended fashion, or you could extort the game's logic by building multiple hoop shot machines, clipping through one another, and crouch up and down while holding a basketball, vastly speeding up the process. The only downside to this is you have to listen to this sound on repeat every time you crouch. Eventually, I make 100,000 tickets and I redeem them at the terminal, getting me the Eyes on the Prize achievement and the last one in this game. So here, all I'm going to be doing is ranking them from worst to first. And so we start off with the Automatron DLC, and this one's it's okay. It's a couple hours in length. But I think the biggest problem is there's no world building for it. Like, when you kill the mechanists, it's justified because they were sending out robots to, kill Commonwealth people, but you just never saw that. I mean, you saw the caravan once, and then you killed 2 big robots and maybe 1 or 2 random encounters, and that was about it. So with nothing to stop it, this is going straight into the first slot. We'll definitely change that later. So the next one is the Vault Tech Workshop, the one where you have the vault underground. To be honest, I think this one had a lot of potential. This one could have been really good. I see what Bethesda was trying to do. They were trying to have you actually be able to build a vault, and that's actually pretty cool. I thought that's really cool. But the execution was pretty terrible. All the little tunnels you have to go through for the 4 different workshops, I thought that was a little dumb. And also Overseer Barstow, I mentioned this in my other video, but how is she not feral? It doesn't make any sense. And then I don't even know where the experiment was going, so I just killed her at the end instead of watching where that goes. So, but I think I would definitely prefer to play the Automatron over this because this one was just pretty shallow, but it definitely had a lot of potential. So this one will go number 2 for now. Contraptions Workshop. This one was the one where you had to build the armor stand and the mass production, the 100 items, and the pillory. This one wasn't too bad. Like, my main gripe with the next one, we'll talk about it later, but it's how do you run around and collect a bunch of random stuff, which was super annoying. So I think this one wasn't too bad because I had all the stuff on standby, and even if I didn't, it would be pretty cheap to go find it. So I think I'll put this definitely under Vault Tech, but these are pretty close. I mean, none of these are good, really. Okay, and that brings us to Wasteland Workshop, which in my opinion is definitely the worst one. I absolutely hated this one. You had to run around fighting all those different types of meats for every single type of cage, and that took like 3 hours on my part, and I had to continuously look up where to find this specific creature so I can kill the specific meat. And then I just chose Yaguai because Radstag meat was the easiest, but you had to wait like 3 days, and it was super annoying to just continuously sleep. And I don't know, but my PC was kind of lagging as well, so the sleeping took like longer between hours than it used to, and that just inflated the time even more and made it even more annoying. The last achievement for the fighting, I thought that was okay. I assigned some random settler who apparently was important in some way because he couldn't die to the Yaguai, but that one wasn't too bad. That was actually kind of fun. But the other two, the docile and the trapper achievement, I didn't like those because you had to run around and find all the materials. So next is Far Harbor. A lot of people like Far Harbor. I think it's better than everything else on the screen right now, but I just I feel like the story wasn't too good because we already know we're not a synth because we were from before the war, which is before even since we're made. And so like the questioning, are you a synth or are you this? And also for Kasumi, I feel like can she just like cut herself and see if she bleeds? Isn't that like a telltale sign that she's human and not a synth? I don't know. I don't know what the lore behind it is, but the aesthetic is nice. I like the creatures, although some of them are a little damaged, spongy. The captain's dance was definitely fun, but I didn't eat any of the captain's feast, and I sold that and the hat. But extra caps in my pocket. But I thought that was really fun and really cool, and it actually made sense. That's how people got to trust you if you had to do the captain's dance. So Far Harbor will definitely go into the first slot for now. Let's move all this down. Alright, and finally, I think my favorite is Nuka World. I actually really liked Nuka World because in the Far Harbor, those memory sections, it really did not make me want to play. They were so boring, and I just didn't want to play. I took like a 4-day break between those memory sections and the next recording. But on Nuka World, I got back into it. I played every day, and I had fun. I ran around. Some things were more tedious than others, like the Galactic Zone and finding all the star cores. That was pretty annoying, and I probably wouldn't have found them all without those objective markers. And the ones inside and outside the park, I didn't even go for those, but if you wanted to get that power armor, you would have to definitely look up a guide or spend hours of your life running around every single place of Nuka World. So definitely there's some gripes, but I liked it a lot more. I like the 3 different gangs. I feel like all of them were a bit cheesy, a little bit. I feel like the disciples with their knives, they only carry guns if they need to, and like knives are where it's at. I heard that voice line like 80 times, and that's okay. But the operators, I didn't like them, so I didn't go with them because I didn't like their fashion. I feel like those bow ties and just regular ties, as well as those like I don't really know what you call them, those buttons with the strings coming out of them, made out of metal. I thought it just looked stupid, and it was just pretty pathetic in my opinion. But I did like the pack a little bit more, even though they were also cheesy. Like, oh, are you an alpha or are you a follower? Like, that was just a little annoying. But I felt like Cedo was a good pick for the alphas or the pack. That's why I gave the Safari Adventure to the pack because I thought Cedo was like could be a pack member. I thought that was cool. Like each gang had their identity, even if it was a little corny, and you could assign each gang to each park in Nuka World depending on their identity. Like the bottling plant, I thought the operators liked to make caps, so I gave them the bottling plant. They could go sell Nuka Cola if they really cared. But the first voice line I heard was, I wish we could make more caps from here. Like, I gave you the most profitable business and you're complaining? I thought that was pretty annoying. Running around and getting all the Nuka Cola recipes, it wasn't that bad, but one of the scav magazines and one of the recipes was locked behind a expert door, so I had to sink a couple points into the lock picking perk to actually get through that door. That was a little annoying, but other than that, it wasn't too bad. I had a lot of fun running around and shooting these random animals. The only downside was definitely that last achievement, the 100,000 tickets at the Nukacade. That was unnecessary. I thought that was probably the worst achievement in this DLC. But definitely not as bad as running around and finding all of those meats and medals for the Trapper achievement. So I think I'm going to put Nuka World up in the top spot. But it doesn't have that much competition. Like Far Harbor's pretty good. Automaton, the only reason it's this high is because all these three are really bad. I wouldn't recommend buying any of these unless you're going for the 100%, or if you find them on sale. Like, I think I got them, all of these, like the season pass for like $15. I think that's fair, because I spent like 40 hours doing this, so that's like couple hours per dollar. I feel like that's a good line to be at. But definitely, if you really like Fallout 4, maybe these are for you, but they weren't really for me. I thought all of them were a little dry in some places, and definitely some better than others. That was my Fallout 4 DLC experience. Thank you so much for watching. If you want, you can like and subscribe, and have a great day.